Hey everyone, Greg Meskel here. Thanks for joining us on more Why We Play with USA Water Polo here on Facebook Live. Great panel on the way today. I say that before all of them, and I mean it genuinely. We have a good one here entitled Podium First. So we're talking with three Olympians who all represented Team USA at different points in the last 20, 30, 40 years and have different podium experiences where they won medals for Team USA. We're joined by Betsey Armstrong, two-time Olympian for Team USA, a silver medalist and a gold medalist. Brandon Brooks, two-time Olympian, silver medalist. And Terry Schroeder, four-time Olympian, two-time silver medalist, and also former head coach of the USA men's national team. Thanks, everyone, for being here. We're starting with the topic Podium First, and all of you kind of came to the podium from a different point in your life. And so I'll start first with Betsey representing the USA women. And you went to two Olympic Games. The first was 2008, and that was a silver, and then you followed it with a gold. But just kind of tell us, in your experience, that lead up to 2008, I know that result was not what the team had wanted, but as you've now been able to reflect back on that experience, what was that buildup like to your first Olympics? And then not only making the Olympics, but getting on the podium the very first time out?
Yeah, I mean, I will say, honestly, that it was a whirlwind. I joined that 2008 group sort of part of the way through that quadrennial, that 4-year period. So, I joined in 2006 when, we made it to the World Cup in China. And then the following year we won a world championship in Melbourne. And, I was coming into the US women's national team amidst a very rich legacy of podium presences, I guess, or, a presence on the podium on the women's side. Our USA women's team, since they made it to the Olympics initially in 2000, had been on the podium both in 2000 and 2004. And so, it was sort of it was crazy, right? Like, because I was able to come into this really high performing group as this, young player from Michigan. So, there was a lot of preparation that went into that. It was kind of walking into this high functioning machine, so to speak. And then, continuing on for another 4 years after that, I've had a lot of time now, many years and sleepless nights with two kids to reflect on all of the meaning of, that first Olympic experience and that second Olympic experience.
And we'll dive more into kind of how those compared and contrasted and how you feel about both as you've moved on from your international playing career. Brandon, you represented Team USA at the 2004 Olympic Games, and we just had your former teammate Ryan Bailey on last week, and he was talking about the 2000 games and the 2004 games leading into 2008 and then 12, and how the 2000 and 2004 teams, the 2000 team was a really talented team, as he mentioned, and then the 2004 team, he talked about just the fitness level that group was in and that it helped kind of set the stage for what happened in 2008. So for you, what was that experience like? You had lived through 2004 and didn't get the result the team wanted, and then to come back, and I know you kind of returned to the team a little bit later in the quadrennial to then reach the podium in 2008. How did that experience compare, given you had an Olympics under your belt already?
Well, I always, when I get asked this question, I always say that my experiences were two completely different experiences. And, I think one stood on the shoulders of the other in terms of, the group that made it to the 2000 games was vastly different than the team that ended up making it to the 2004 team. But I think that foundation was built and carried on through to 2008. That was, integral to our success, and, credit to Terry and his staff. But, they took a group that had gotten a good amount of experience, even though we didn't get result. And they put a lot of fine tuning. They put a lot of ownership of the team. And we were able to get a better result. But there were two very different experiences for me specifically.
And then, Terry, we'll turn to you. And just today, a great article featuring your former teammate, Peter Schnug, talking about the 1980 Olympics and that boycott and the experience of not getting a chance to compete. And you were on that 80 team. And then to come back in 84, I have to imagine it's a different set of circumstances from just being an Olympian in one Olympics, not medaling, and then wanting to do better the next time out versus, Terry, your experience in 84 when not only did you want a medal, right, but you're also representing guys that didn't get a chance to go, not just in 80, but then not in 76 either due to no qualification.
Right. Yeah, it was an interesting time for the men's water polo team when I joined in 78. You know, the team had not had a lot of success, unlike Betsey, who came into a team that was rich in the podium. Our team really hadn't been to the podium for a long time, since 72. And there were a lot of changes with coaching staff and players. And, you know, going into the 1980 Olympic Games, we had really come together under Monty Oskowski and Ken Lindgren. And we had beaten some of the best teams in the world in their backyards. We really felt like we had a great chance to win a gold medal going to Moscow in 1980. And, you know, for me, it was like, that was, in my mind, my one and only shot at ever making it to the Olympic Games. So when we boycotted, it was devastating. I mean, I was really down, really depressed, and felt like that opportunity had been taken away from me. And I think all the athletes felt like we could have done something differently to really protest what was going on with the Russians in Afghanistan rather than drop out of the Olympics. But, you know, credit to that team, 9 out of the 11 guys, there was only 11 guys on the Olympic team in 1980. 9 out of those 11 guys decided to play 4 more years. The 2 coaches came back. Terry Sarian, our manager, came back. And to know that the Olympics were in Los Angeles and water polo was at Pepperdine, where I'd gone to school, you know, just turned out to be a wonderful experience. And, you know, a silver medal is so weird because it's a silver medal in the Olympic Games, and yet you lose that last game and you feel like you failed. So, you know, I've been there too many times as a player and a coach, and it's a tough situation to, I mean, you watch a bronze medal game and the team that wins the bronze medal celebrates. You know, they're super happy. They got a medal in the Olympics, but the team that wins the silver medal is, you know, it's kind of rotten feeling that you walk away having come so close. But as years have passed, it's certainly a reflection now on it is it's a wonderful, huge achievement, you know, for the men's team and for USA Water Polo. So playing in front of the people at Pepperdine and in LA was a very unique Olympic experience, and we can talk about it more, but it was, you know, a great memory for sure.
Yeah, I mean, for you specifically, right? It's hard to draw it up better, right? To be at your college pool in your home area, and then for the team to be successful, hard to really top that. Betsey, I'll come back to you. Just kind of looking back to 2008, and as you alluded to, right? It's a really strong team. You had, I think, in 2007, did not lose a single game. That group on the way to winning a world championship of Pan American Games. And then you go into those Olympics, obviously as the favorite. We talked about the silver medal result. How did you kind of handle that experience when, as you said, you were fairly new to the team? So you're in 2 years, it's kind of a microwaved process, right? To get to that caliber of water polo. What do you remember going into those games as you think back on them now, and kind of making sure that you felt ready to do it all?
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's interesting. Like, it was really a lot, right, to come into that legacy and to come in at that time and to have such an amazing year performance-wise in 2007. I will say, you know, like, our team really relied on our system of play, and we trained hard. I think we trained harder than any other team in the world, you know, on the women's side, and we had our roles and we clung to them. And I think in some ways, you know, that didn't serve us well in our ultimate end all results. You know, we really weren't able to adjust in ways that we needed to and should have. However, it gave us so much confidence in how we played, and it gave us, you know, this connection with just this reliability of knowing, you know, where to be, when to be there. Each one of us just had a very systematic presence in how we played, and that, you know, really was able to alleviate some of the, you know, rush that you get when, you know, so much is unknown. So we were able to kind of take in that whirlwind Olympic experience, but we always had, you know, our system to come back to, our circle, our team, you know, that really got us through that tournament in a really even sort of way.
And Betsey, throughout the last 4 months, however long this pandemic has been lasting, we've had a lot of conversations with various athletes, men and women that have won the silver medal, and they all kind of have processed it differently, right? I think all of them, to Terry's point, that immediate aftermath is, at least in recent years, it's a lost game. So there's the kind of upset nature of we didn't win, and there was this goal. What was your process for kind of coming to a understanding with the result, I guess, is how I would phrase it, to where it was, and I don't know, you tell me, is it a very positive feeling as you think back on it? Is it buoyed by the fact that you then won a gold medal? How do you kind of process silver in '08?
Totally. I mean, it was crushing to walk away from that tournament. For, on our women's side, again, since the 2000 Olympic Games, the women, in 2000 qualified, sort of their last opportunity to qualify, made it to the Olympics in 2000 in Sydney, and then, fall short of a gold medal in the final game with the last second. But in some ways it was their first Olympic experience, right? Like, it was such I mean, as Terry said, you always, like whenever you take home a silver medal, you finish with a loss. And as any athlete, I think, can relate to, you always sort of wonder, why didn't we ultimately, get that gold or get that W? But, then to go on and have that team in 2004, which, I wasn't on, had sort of a heartbreaking experience in their semifinal and ended up in the bronze medal match, winning a bronze medal. This program really looked at Beijing as like, okay, silver, bronze, now it's time for us to get to the gold. And that expectation, we all had that expectation. That was a very real thing that every person on that team believed, that this was our time. We weren't too far ahead of ourselves, but, that's really what we went in there, especially coming off of that 2007 year. So we were just crushed. I think the final game, we were down 4-0 after the first quarter against Holland. And, we battled our way back. I mean, it ended up being a really close game, but just, it wasn't what any of us anticipated or really saw coming at us. And so it took a long time and a lot of sort of personal and collective work between 2008 and 2012 to recover from that and learn from that in a big way. And now, of course, like almost 2 quadrennials later, I'm able to say that, this was arguably, that silver medal was the most important experience of my overarching water polo career. But it's taken some time, I think, to get to that place for me to really be able to see all of the learning and be willing to be open to all of the learning that took place.
Yeah, time definitely brings some different perspective, that's for sure. Brandon, you had mentioned the 2 different experiences of '04 and '08, and you had taken some time away from the national team after the '04 kind of quadrennial ends, and then you come back and rejoin the team as they're working their way towards Beijing. What was that impetus for you to kind of get back in the mix and be a part of this team again? Was it a feeling of unfinished business, or just a kind of a draw to a sport you loved? What kind of drew you back in?
Well, okay. Now that I know we can take a little more time, I'm going to go ahead and take my time here. Interestingly enough, if I start in like near the end and then maybe work backwards, but the picture of Catalina behind Terry there was, I think, really the impetus. Oh no, I lost. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah. We still got you.
Okay. Well, I lost my my video, but regardless, I was on the way to Jesse Smith's wedding, and Terry and I ended up having a conversation about, just kind of life and, how we're doing, how was my time away from the sport, how, where were things going, that kind of really got my my head thinking about, where I was and what I was doing. And we were on our way to Catalina for that wedding. And I think that it was probably like 2 months later that I rejoined. I tried out. First of all, I went to the open tryout with everyone, and then was thankfully good enough to make it to the next level, and then tried out, rejoin the team. And it was definitely that. It was really my overarching goal for my USA water polo experience was to try and be as good as I could and just find the best competition. but I started playing water polo in Hawaii in '96, I think. And at that point, there were some stories, right? The USA team had won in a silver medal in '88, and you have '96, you have 2000, where we did not make it to the medal stand. And that's kind of where I started having a dream, at least, of like, all right, maybe I can be a part of helping the USA men's side, especially alongside the great women's programs. Can I help the men's side get back to the podium? And that was one of my bigger goals. So, I felt like the guys that were mostly on that 2018, I had good relationships with. And if I thought I could help in any way, put them, put us back to where we wanted to be, I thought it was worth a shot. And it was a really incredible journey.
Did you get your video back? Can you see us again?
I cannot.
Well,
Flying blind here.
We can see you perfectly, and we can hear
Okay.
you. So all is well on your end. It's funny. I can remember being such a basketball nut, in addition to liking water polo, meeting Brandon for the first time at that open tryout, and just wanted to talk to him about UCLA basketball. And he was very much like, "I'm here for water polo. Like, I'm trying to make this team. Basketball was a million years ago." And I was like, "But like John Wooden, let's talk Poly Pavilion." It was just a funny memory to me. But you end up making that team, and then it becomes a team that wins a medal, right? And it ends up being a different ending than what you had experienced in Athens. What was that feeling for you, like, Brandon, to kind of have this realization you still want to do it, right? And then you come back and you do it, and then you're part of a team that is successful.
It was incredible. There's no real way to describe the Olympic experience. And in some ways, I guess, coming off of '04, in some ways it's almost like, man, you train your whole life, your whole sporting life, for this 2-week tournament, and it's just a 2-week tournament, but it's obviously so much more than that. There's such an incredible history of the Olympics. There is so much work that goes into it, and it's at the end of the day, it's the process, it's the work that makes it so special, and like the relationships you build along the way. For any of the young water polo players listening, that creation of the team throughout all of the training that Betsey talked about, and all of the grit and sacrifice in order to be able to stand up there and represent your country and be able to say you played your sport at the highest level, that's really rewarding, really memorable, really character building, and incredibly special.
Terry, we've talked a bit in the past about the result from '84, and Betsey was talking about kind of the perspective that a silver medal gave her as she's moved forward in life. In your instance, it was a situation where you didn't lose that last game. I think some people know that the way that '84 shook out was that it was a goal differential. It wasn't a scenario where you lost a gold medal game going into that final. What was the process for you to kind of gain a certain appreciation or perspective on that silver medal after kind of the sting of the result?
That took some time for sure. It was, I think that, as Brandon just mentioned, and Betsey, talked about too, you feel that pain for yourself, but you feel it for your teammates too. So probably was 2 weeks after the '84 Olympics when I decided that I was going to try it again if I could, because we had come so close. And like you said, we didn't lose the game. We had tied, which was even more miserable, to not actually, have a defeat, but be in a tie and lose because of a goal differential. When it all came back to a game really against Spain, where we had beaten Spain when they were still in medal contention.
I got an interesting question here for Brandon from a Facebook viewer. If UH Manoa had a competitive men's water polo team, would you have considered staying on the home turf, if you will, for college instead of going to UCLA?
I'm sure I would have considered it. It's unlikely. mostly just because, I was very interested in trying new things. I like to mix it up in general. Having a new experience living in California probably would have been very attractive to me. I think funny side note, for those that don't know, I played basketball in high school, and I was very interested in playing basketball in college. And, a big part of me ended up going to UCLA was they said I could try out for the basketball team there. Conversely, Manoa, my home college, actually wrote me a letter after winning the state championship, congratulating me and letting me know that they would not recruit me for basketball, which I think is a pretty rare thing to get a hey, just want to let you know we're not going to recruit you letter. So Manoa probably would have been a tough sell.
So was that just feeling like, not to get down a rabbit hole here, but they just felt like you would not go there, and so they were not going to waste the recruitment?
I have no idea, but it was a distinct, strange letter.
Yeah. In a related story, Duke did not recruit me for basketball. So,
but they didn't write you a letter telling you that, right?
No, they didn't. I mean, unless my parents hid it from me. But
weird.
Terry, it seems like you're in a better service area here. I just want to go back to that as you were talking about 84 versus 80 and kind of reflecting back on 80 when you're winning a medal at 84.
Yeah, I think the 4 years goes by and maybe there's a slight feeling of vindication of getting better, getting back to the podium and being successful in 1984. But just as Brandon alluded to earlier, it's such different experiences. Each and every Olympic game is so different. And I was trying to give a little shout out to Peter Snug, who you mentioned, because he was my roommate in 1978 when I joined the USA team. And I was just a young guy still in college, and Peter really taught me so much about self-discipline. Here's this guy really at the kind of twilight of his career, going for his Olympic Games in 1980. And he would get up early every morning in the room, no matter how much we were training, how much we were swimming, and he would do his push-ups and sit-ups and, a good half hour, 45 minutes exercises before the day would start. And I'm like, what's going on here? We're training pretty hard already, doing more. What are you trying to do? And he goes, well, I want to be ready, and he was, it was a perfect situation for me because it just, I think taught me that no matter how much you train, how much you do, you can always do more. You can always be a little bit more prepared and ready. The not going to the Olympics in 1980 just was, I was young enough to come to realize after the games that I still had a chance to do it again. And my heart really went out to the guys that didn't have a chance to do it again. Peter Snug and Steve Hammond, two of our teammates in 1980 who didn't get a chance in 84.
Betsey, I'll come back to you on reaching the podium. And while we talked about what that feels like in the moment, I know that when you come home from that, whether it's back to California or back to your home Michigan, people are thrilled, right? They're very, very excited. Even though you're kind of coming off of this loss, they are very pumped that someone they know has won a medal. What do you remember from kind of the response, especially for you coming from Michigan? That's an area that is not as well known for water polo. What was that response like when you finally get to go back to Ann Arbor?
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, it's like, I think it's a really big reminder of why we do what we do, right? Because when you're at this tournament on the other side of the world and you're locked down, playing your system, experiencing everything, with this really tight group of people around you, it isn't until you kind of go off on your own afterwards and see the direct impact that it has on your family, your communities, and your, everyone who supported you throughout this entire process. So, I mean, getting back to Michigan was really cool, especially, a little fact about that team is, Allison Gregorka, my teammate in 2008, was also from Ann Arbor. We went to rival high schools, and, so, I mean, that was just a really big thing for women's water polo and for, young women and girls to see, two people on this team that came from, not California. And Elsie Wines, I should also say, was from Oregon on that team as well. And that is a rare, that was a very rare thing. In water polo in general, it still is, it isn't the most common thing. So, to get back to my roots and to get back to the Midwest was really, really, heartwarming and special about that experience. And it totally, helps heal that wound a little bit of falling short of your ultimate goal of being there. And inspires you to ultimately, grow and move forward from the experience.
And then we touched a bit on you then following up and winning gold in London. How did the silver experience impact you going into London? Did it change the way you prepared or how you felt mentally going into a final?
Absolutely. I think anytime any person is faced with what, he or she or they consider to be a big personal failure, you are faced with a choice of how you want to move forward from that, and it's, sounds pretty drastic or pretty radical to say, winning a silver medal at the Olympic Games in Beijing was a, personal failure. But, we talked about, the three of us, this therapy session is that, the way you feel in that moment. Right. And so, it's very acute at that time that we fell short of, what we wanted to accomplish. And particularly as a goalkeeper, playing in that final game, having one player on the Dutch national team score, 7 out of their 9 goals. I had a little bit of stuff to work through after that tournament. And so, I basically had to decide, how I was going to move forward from that. And it wasn't clear. Like, I didn't have some clear path forward where I was like, okay, I'm going to learn A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, and then I'm going to come out of this perfectly. It was like a difficult space to navigate for a while. And it, I had to deal with how, I approached the sport personally. And then I also had to deal with how I approached the sport, collectively with my teammates. And I had to deal with how I approached the sport, how I was coached throughout the sport. So, and again, it was sort of a trial and error experience, moving forward, but ultimately it took a lot of trust and it took a lot of, willingness to check myself and willingness to be checked. And so, I think it was really that ultimately ended up to my own success within the sport and being able to go through it a second time and enjoy it and not live in fear of, repeating history.
Similar question, Brandon, because the state of Hawaii had this history, right, of sending, I think it's quite a few goalies over the 90s and 2000s to the national team level and then on to the Olympics. And so when you're able to win a medal, what's that response back home like after 2008?
It was overwhelmingly positive. I think it was very prideful. It was, for me representing, my country and getting to stand up there and be a part of that. But also to bring that back to the island is a huge source of pride. And, again, I did, you mentioned this, but I did, I'm very thankful to the people that came before me, right, from Punahou and my coach, Ken Smith, and Chris Duplanty, who was that goalie late 80s through the 90s. And, and I think if I can make a small plug here, I think Punahou had a US Olympian from 2008 all the way back to 88 on every Olympics.
That sounds right.
So,
yeah.
A source of great pride as well.
And then, in that time, right, we're all kind of, throwing the perspective question out there, but as you think back on it now, and I'm not sure how often it, comes up day to day, where someone asks you about being an Olympian or winning a silver medal, where does that experience sit in your mind now? Is it something you get to think about often? Is it something that comes up only once in a while? Where does it kind of live with everything else you have going on in your life now, post international water polo?
It comes up quite often, actually. The guys at my work, whether it's kind of poking fun at me or using it as a source of pride to, when we have customers come through, and they get to say oh yeah, here's Brandon, he's an Olympian. It comes up kind of icebreaker, if you will. But personally, I just think the lessons that I've got from the process leading up to it, silver medal or not, 2004 taught me so many lessons, just like 2008 did. There's no question that 2008 was more fun to have that success, but they're both leave you with so many lessons on who you are and just the hard work of it, that I take to my everyday life, right? If I can make it to an Olympics, I can get my kid to eat some vegetables, right? Or if I can make it to an Olympics, I can learn this new skill set of a new line of work. That kind of confidence, that belief in myself, are just some of the lessons.
Sure. Terry, you had the 84 and the 88 silver experience, and then you were Brandon's head coach in 2008. Thinking back to your playing days first, right, with the 80 boycott and then 3 straight Olympic games, as you're now removed from your playing career, and for some, I think probably more known as a coach, right, depending on their age, where does your silver medal experience kind of live in your mind now? Is it something that your perspective has changed on as you've gotten older? How do you kind of think about those 84 and 88 experiences?
Definitely going back and coaching was a learning experience. And as Brandon said, it's something that, you're confident that you can accomplish anything when you made it to that level. And I think that it's humbling, to be a part of it. But that team in 2008 was very special. Really a great group of guys that were super talented, and to see them grow and come from a place of being ranked 9th in the world to winning a silver medal. I think when I was up in the stands and watching them receive their silver medal, it was probably more painful for me to watch them get a silver than for me to actually win a silver medal, because I wanted it so bad for them, and they were so close. So it was an interesting moment of watching that silver medal and feeling the pride of getting the team back there, helping them get back there, but also feeling the disappointment and knowing that they were going to live through something that I had lived through too. That tough silver medal. So. As time goes on, certainly, and having coached in 2012, and, we didn't win a medal in 2012, and in 1992, we didn't win a medal. There's a lot of moments in life where, you do realize what an amazing accomplishment a silver medal in the Olympic Games is. And, I'm so proud of our 2008 guys, and Brandon was a big part of that. And just, watching the women and everything they've done in the last 15 years, has been, extremely satisfying to watch that success, and to see what Guy and Adam have done, and all these women that have come through, and, to be the top team in the world for that long is really difficult. Having played at a top level, it's tough to do because everybody wants to get you, everybody wants a piece of you. So, I'm really proud of our teams that I played on. I'm proud of the team that Brandon played for, and I'm grateful that I was a part of USA Water Polo and still am. I mean, it's an awesome sport, and for those young kids that are thinking about an Olympic experience, it starts with a dream, and you gotta believe in yourself, and you gotta tell people around you so that they can help hold you accountable, and you gotta work hard. I mean, it's a lot of work for sure, but it definitely is worth every second of it. It's been an incredible experience, and I've been very blessed in my life for sure to be a part of the Olympics as a player and a coach.
Yeah, I can always recall you telling a story before the 08 games about overhearing kids wondering if the team would ever be good again, and then you had the joy of being able to say, like, we were good once, and then we'll be good again, right? The team is able to win a silver medal. To build off of that, you're so closely associated with water polo in the U.S. I mean, I think all of us here have traveled all over the world for water polo. And a lot of people who maybe only speak 5 words of English. 2 of them, if we're talking water polo, might be Terry Schroeder. So what was that responsibility like for you to be someone who's so associated with what was such a good era for men's water polo in the 80s?
You know, I think that when you grow as a team, I've never felt a personal responsibility other than to my teammates. And I always felt like my teammates had my back, and, you know, win or lose, it was what we were going to do together, not what I was going to do. So, you know, that's humbling to hear that, but it's, and it was a great era for USAWP water polo men. And, you know, it's a lot of, it's part of my life that I'm super proud of, but it also, what's really interesting to me being an Olympian is mostly a blessing, but it can be a little bit of a curse too. And I think when I stopped playing in 1992, it was some of the most difficult days of my life to realize that part of my life was over. And I think my continuing on this therapy mindset,
Yep.
my you know, biggest issue was that I allowed water polo to be who I was and not just a part of who I was. And I think that for me personally, and for me, like I said, there's nothing like it in life where you miss your teammates, you miss that experience of grinding together and working together for a common goal. And it's difficult to find in life. I mean, it's a big reason why I'm still coaching is because I get to be a part of that a little bit, even at Pepperdine, and to help guide and mentor guys that can reach a higher level as a team than they ever thought possible is pretty special. So it's a big part of why I still coach and why I'm still going.
This is really, really good stuff from all 3 of our panelists here. We'll kind of just wrap up with this. You know, the premise of this talk was Podium first, right? But it sounds like, just hearing from all of you, and I talked to all of you, you know, in the past at length about this, but you've gotten so much from the sport, right? You've gotten medals, but you've gotten so much else from the game. Betsey, I'll kind of start back with you. If you could, and this is probably hard to pinpoint, but if you think on one of the most valuable things you've gotten from this experience that led to you standing on a podium, you know, as you think back now, what are one of those things that this game and this experience brought to your life that maybe you wouldn't have had otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. It's hard to pick one, obviously. So, you know, it has enriched me in many, many ways. You know, but I would say it's really taught me about relationships and how, you know, the work that goes into relationships and the respect that goes into relationships, and, you know, being on a team that's working for this collective thing that everyone wants to work toward, you know, with vastly different people by your side. And, you know, in that manner, you're taught so much about where you fit into all of that. And, you know, anyone that's training for an Olympic Games or an Olympian is a successful person, right? So it, you know, really humbles you in many, many ways to have to invest in these relationships in ways that you might not think you have to necessarily. There's kind of this like attitude that, you know, I'm a hard worker, I'm successful, I can do this, you know? And so it's actually just really taught me so much about relationships, and it's brought my family together, right? Like my husband is a water polo coach, and, you know, we wouldn't have met were it not for this sport. And, you know, it's given me these opportunities to live in other countries. I've lived in France, I've lived in Italy, I've, you know, been to China many, many times. You know, there's just so much that it's given me.
And a similar question to you, Brandon. I know you talked about, well, if I can, you know, train for the Olympics, I can get my kids to eat some vegetables, right? But what along those lines, right? What else have you kind of gotten out of this experience that maybe you don't even get with basketball or something else team related, but you feel like was really, and who knows, right? You went on the water polo road, but something that you feel like you really got out of this high level water polo experience.
Okay. Well, I'm going to first take a quick departure here and give thanks publicly to Terry and all that he's done for our sport, for me as an athlete coming up. if anyone doesn't know, there is a literal statue of Terry on the UCLA campus from the 1988 games. So I got the opportunity to walk by Terry Schroeder very often on the way to class. And just, I mean, his legacy. So thank you, Terry.
Wait, so there's a statue of Terry at USC and at UCLA?
I don't know about the one elsewhere, but I'm familiar with the one at UCLA.
All right.
I don't know about that.
It's smaller than I think maybe another one.
Hey, is the guy peeing in the pool or what?
So and then I think something that I've just been thinking about hearing us talk about the ups and downs of the silver medal, but just to give praise to that team and to Betsey specifically about how, I mean, it is so difficult to be number one, and to have that sustained success of the women's program, but to actually win a gold medal, it is really an incredible feat. So great job, Betsey. The lesson, I would say that the overall lesson that I've learned from my water polo journey, and probably sports in general, but specifically the Olympic water polo journey, is like the lesson of discipline, I guess, the lesson of hard work, and the difficulty in the growing of it, the difficulty in the tough lessons, but the beauty of seeing yourself change, right? Seeing how far you can go mentally, physically, any sort of growth that it requires from you. And I know that journey has made me a better person in all walks of my life.
That's great. Terry, maybe all the good answers have been taken, but what has your water polo journey, as both a high level player and a coach, brought you that maybe you wouldn't have gotten otherwise?
There's a lot, like Betsey and Brandon have talked about. Lots of life lessons, I think, that we take with us and that we can apply daily. When I came back to Pepperdine after coaching the USA team, I kind of put into play 6 pillars that I feel like all came from my personal experience as a player and a coach. And they're similar to what Brandon and Betsey have already talked about, but I'll go through them real quickly because I think they're important to talk about. First one is family or team, and it's relationships. And really, it's to be successful, you have to have those relationships with your teammates. You have to love each other and be there for each other. On top is kind of this excellence attitude that no matter what you do, and this is probably personally something I've taken with me and taken to heart every single day, is I want to be the best I can be every single day. That's as a chiropractor, as a coach, as a husband, as a dad. That came from the Olympics for sure. To want that desire to be the best in what I do. Commitment, your level of commitment is going to really determine your level of success. As Brandon said, self-discipline is another one. And I think as I work with these college kids, that's where most of these college kids will fail, is just making bad choices and not having that self-discipline. And then respecting, coaches and players and each other, but also respecting the differences. I think that's what really makes a team function at the highest level, is you respect those differences, and then you gain each other's trust, and then you can be successful as a team. And the last one's kind of the wild card that was brought up earlier. I'm not sure if Brandon or Betsey talked about it, but it's grit. And that's being able to go through adversity and work through things that are that seem almost impossible. Whether you're down by 2 goals with a minute left in the game, or the referee's jacking you got to figure out how to get there, how to win that game. So I think those 6 pillars really came from my personal experience, and they're life lessons that I've learned that I really try to put in my players' minds at Pepperdine, and I think they've been very positive lessons in my life too.
Fantastic. Really, really appreciate that, Terry, Betsey, Brandon. Thanks for sharing all of this. Thanks to everyone who joined us here on Facebook Live. I have to give one shout out to, and I apologize if I'm butchering the name, but Limu Poke, who fired out a bunch of great comments and questions. And we also had a former high school, Lauren Tarbuck, who played against Betsey in college, says shout out, and CJ Moore, a big Punahou fan, also gives a shout out to Brandon. So thanks to those for watching. Thanks to our three panelists, and we will talk to you all soon. Everyone, take care.